Welcome. In this healing video, I will be erasing negative alien energy. Later on in the video, I will go through the various energies and entity races this video will be erasing. But what I'm mainly going to talk about is my overall experience with alien encounters, alien energies. I have done a fair amount of research because aliens are a very interesting topic. But rather than repeating what is already out there, I may do that later on. I will instead take you through my journey and how I have come to the conclusion that aliens do not have my best interests, and if you have, say, if you're not evil, they also don't have your best interests at heart either. And even evil people usually don't have their best interests at heart, so long as you're human. So, in, I'm going to say 2017, I was in a group chat online of a friend of a friend, and in there, someone joined who was into, he was very into aliens, and he was called, I'll call him Raztorian, because it's similar enough to his name without actually directing energy to his online name. And I don't remember why, but we ended up talking about aliens, and he said that he was very interested in aliens, and he had studied a lot about them. And then he said that there was this show online called Cosmic Disclosure. And when he started talking about aliens and cosmic disclosure, his internet started going on and off, and he was in and out of the call, and he said this always happens when he talks about aliens. And I thought, oh, okay, well, if he's getting interfered with energetically, and I had seen this happen to other people when they'd gone to talk about their energetic negative experiences, their internet would usually go haywire, and they would be in and out. So that added some credibility. It's also weird thinking about it that the only reason I met him is because he was playing with a friend of a friend some pirate game that had come out. But that set me down this path. So he said, yeah, if you want to watch Cosmic Disclosure, I'll just give you my username and password. And I went, yeah, that sounds good. So I went online and I opened the website, which I shan't say because the energy is not very good at the moment. And I started watching Cosmic Disclosure. And in it, it is about this man called Corey Good, who was a member of the secret space program. And he's being interviewed by David Wilcock, who is a famous, I didn't know at the time, but he's a relatively famous, I'd say mainly New Agey, but more so alien investigator type celebrity, really. And he's asking questions about his experience in the secret space program, how he was enlisted into the secret space program, his childhood, things like that. Now, the first season of the show, the man who's being interviewed is, like, he seems very out of it while he's talking. Mainly because, as far as I'm aware, he had a lot of chronic pain at the time, but David would ask him, like, say, rather major questions about extraterrestrial life, and he would go, yes, that is what happened, indeed. And I remember watching the show and thinking, this is interesting, but something feels quite off here. But the night after I'd watched probably 3 episodes of the show, a whole bunch of stars showed up outside of my bedroom window. I could see a whole bunch of stars, but these stars, well, they were not up in outer space where stars are supposed to be. They were way too low, and they were moving around, and they had a blinking red light on it. And I thought, that's very odd. I've never seen this happen before. Why are there a whole bunch of stars, or star beings, whatever they are, very low, and moving around? Stars are supposed to be fairly stationary in the sky. And then, if I didn't watch the show, there'd be no stars. And then, and I said the day after that, I watched a few more episodes of the show, more stars in the sky. And I thought, alright, this must be the stars. This must be the energy of the aliens trying to convince me that the show is real and that I should continue to watch it. Right? This show is clearly important because I've not had this happen with any other show. So I continued to watch it, and more stars showed up. And about, I'm going to say 5 weeks after I started watching it, he was in the group call playing the pirate game. And I said to him, hey, I started watching the show. It's quite interesting. The info seems really good. There's something feels off with it. But when I watch it, a whole bunch of stars show up in the sky. And now if I don't watch it, there's still a bunch of stars. And he said, oh, that's that's really interesting. I've never heard of that before. And I thought, you're an alien guy, this isn't happening to you? He said, no, this doesn't happen to me at all. Now, I ended up watching, the first 2 seasons in a chunk, and then most of the 3rd season, I'd say. And then I stopped watching, because I guess it just wasn't holding my attention that much. A few of the stories, especially with the people they interviewed, not so much him himself, his stories were okay, but a few of the people they interviewed, I could tell they actually, one guy, can't remember his name because I saw this show years ago, but he talked about being taken down underneath Washington, and there being underground alien bases there, and him seeing a physical grey. That guy, I could, even now, he was telling the truth, and I don't believe he. Problem is with the truth. There is a truth, and there is the truth. And people that are crazy, they will have a truth, and they will truly believe it. And if you question on it, often their narrative falls apart. But this guy, he was telling their truth with aliens. He was very interesting. I realise now the reason why all these stars were showing up is when you watch a show, and there is a guy who was in the secret space program, he most likely was, and David Wilcock. Those 2 people have a lot, an awful lot, an incredible amount, the most amount you can have really, of alien energy, a ridiculous amount. So when you watch that, especially if you're a targeted person, that alien energy goes, this guy, we're supposed to target him a lot, and then that energy will come off the energy field of the video, where their energies are recorded in, and go on you. And then, because I now have a whole bunch of alien energy that I've picked up from the show, that's why all these stars started showing up. The main things, I'll talk about the stars right now, the main things I noticed about them, so they would often blink in and out. They wouldn't be essentially one solid light. It would always be flickering, and there'd often be a red or blue dot in there that was flickering a lot, and they had some kind of alien splitting technology. I learned later on that these stars are not star beings. They are in fact essentially generic flying saucer UFOs. Usually they're essentially drone type ships. They're very small for a spaceship anyway. They're still rather large, and they have a splitting technology. So usually there'll be one star, and then it will separate into about 8 or 10, and that was the reason why I thought these must be some kind of energetic entities, rather than thinking they were ships. But because if there's someone piloting these ships, what's going on with them when they split? And I realise now, so these ships, they usually need at least one grey to pilot them, but you can have numerous greys. You can have 10 or so in one body, and then when the ship splits, the grey themselves split with the ship, and that way, I'm not quite sure what their agenda is there, but they have that technology. I remember seeing that quite a lot, how these stars would split into numerous different ones. As I go along, I did learn and figure out more about what went on, but I'll try and keep this chronological. One thing I found, I'd say, confusing is I had the thought of why are they targeting me, right? At this time, I was not energy trading. So I had no idea why they would put this much focus on, look, you must believe in us aliens. I thought, do I become the CEO of some mega corporation in the future? Look, if I don't name the channel, can you not all repeat? Come on. But I think that's a big question a lot of people have, especially when they're children, why negative entities target them so much. And the main reason is they want to feed off your energy as much as they can. And if you believe in them and willingly give them energy and don't fight against them, it's going to be much, much easier for them. After, I'd say, this was going for a while, I remembered I had seen a spaceship once before when I was, I believe, 10. I woke up at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and looked out my window, and there was a dark flying saucer, no lights on, probably 40 meters from my house at just above house level. But other than that, I'd had no real alien activity. And then, as I was watching the show, one main thing he talks about is praying mantis aliens. And then, I believe this was also before I started energy training, I woke up and I was fairly used to waking up and there being demonic entities or ghosts or other negative creatures in my room. And I woke up and there was a praying mantis across from my bed, standing to the left. And I thought, that's a praying mantis alien. That's not a ghost. Because he talks about it in the show. It was halfway see-through, so fairly ethereal. It wasn't there physically. And then I thought, alright, well, that's interesting. I've seen an alien now. And then I went back to sleep. Now, later on as I became, I'd say, more aware of my body and paid more attention, I would wake up with cuts and bruises over me. And well, actually not so much cuts. It would be more like if you're getting targeted by negative entities, you often have cuts and bruises. If you're getting targeted by aliens, particularly alien abductions, whether physical or energetic, then you often wake up with like scalpel marks in you, and you'll feel like someone has stolen your urine, your reproductive fluids. It'll be very clear because they'll have taken most of it, and you'll feel it. It'll be very apparent. So I'll now talk about after I began energy training. So I began energy training, and I remember laying in bed after I'd done the waterfall technique, probably 4 months in, and there was a praying mantis entity right to the side of me, and I had no idea how to get rid of them. And he was just pushing in like essentially some kind of neural mesh, like AI sci-fi wire, just putting it into my brain etherically. And I was thinking, alright, well, I have no idea how to stop you. I really hope this is positive. It probably wasn't. I'll explain why later on. But I just ignored it and kept my usual training routine. Over time, it went from just being, and I just stopped watching the show, but that energy was definitely on me. And one thing I thought is, okay, well, if I've watched the show and this show has impacted me, then are other people able to see these aliens, or am I in the alien frequency and they've always been there? So I spoke to one of my brothers and said, hey, can you see all these stars? He said, yes. And I said, can you see that, which was clearly a UFO, not a star? And he said, yes, I can see that. And I said, good, you have never done anything energetic, so that means these things are physically showing up for everyone. Hopefully not just because I watched the show, but they were very much there. And over time, more and more aliens showed up. I don't believe this was solely because of me. Various spaceships, a lot are just the generic flying saucer shape. The way spaceships will show up is they will usually wait till around sunset when the energy is denser. It's very hard for them for them to show up when the sun's up. And they will essentially phase from whatever dimension they're in, whether it's the 4th or the 7th, and they will gradually parts of the ship will come in, and more and more and more, and then they'll spend an hour or an hour and a half just gradually phasing into the 3rd dimension, into physical reality. I'd say most memorable ships, after a while I went, alright, let me see if I can record these. Do these show up on camera? And yes, the stars showed up on camera. I have quite a few pictures and a few recordings. One giant black granite ship showed up. It did not have barely any light. It had barely any lights on. And I thought, let me record this one. And then when I recorded it, it must have sensed it was being recorded by someone who was actually paying attention to it, not just, recording their, sister. And there was a spaceship in the background. And then it disappeared for about 20 minutes. Then it came back and it no longer showed up on recording. It had done some kind of frequency cloaking to itself that you could see it with your eyes, but it did not show up on video. That was, I believe, a rather large black Anunnaki flying saucer. Now, I'm just making sure I don't. I've got my list of order to talk about things in. Yeah, the next, I'd say, main alien experience I had, I went to sleep, and I woke up, and I had surgical scars on me. And what they will do is they will physically abduct you. And physical abductions, they're usually very rare. It's much more likely that there will be an energetic abduction. But a physical abduction, they'll phase you out of your, usually your bedroom where you're sleeping, and into the ship. And I woke up the next day, and I felt really bad. And I had cuts all over me, and they'll spray you with this alien turpentine, and it causes rapid regeneration of the body. However, it also causes cellular damage. So, and as you build up your energy, your body will reject the negative, forced rapid regeneration of your body. But I woke up and I checked my phone. I used to be able to touch phones before I killed all the aliens and they got mad and made all phone technology hostile towards me. But I checked my phone, and on there was a picture, and it was very weird because I would sleep with a lamp on, and in this picture, it was essentially, the room was mostly black, and there were like red and white lights on the ceiling, and I thought, alright, what is this? At first I thought, did like a ghoul come in and take a picture in a way that looked like that, and then I thought, no, and as I have now looked at the energy of what happened, no, I was abducted with my phone. So I took a picture when they weren't paying enough attention to me, or they simply didn't care. I was curious about this because I hadn't thought about this for probably more than a year and a half. Last night, and I was laying in bed, and I went, let me actually have a look. So subconscious, they can erase these memories from you consciously. They'll usually use like a flashing white light for sometimes half an hour to build a conscious blockage there. But all of these memories are still stored in your subconscious. They are not simply deleted. So I had a look at what happened there, and it looks like I was in my bed, and then I was... what they'll do, in order to abduct you, usually what they'll do is they'll do energetic abductions, not physical abductions. So when you sleep, it may seem like I'm all over the place. I'm not. I'm following a carefully planned train of thought. When you sleep, your consciousness, which is usually in your brain, will come down into your spine, and often negative entities will set up entity realms in your spine. So you go, you're sleeping, and into a dream, which is a negative entity realm, where they are all playing characters in the dream. But in the dream, I believe this was probably a purgatory dream. I used to have a lot of those. But I was in a purgatory dream. It was my house, my bedroom, and then a spaceship showed up outside the window. And this was essentially aliens using a frequency device to hijack your consciousness while you're already in another negative entity dream. But I have very good dream recollection. So if this would happen to me consciously, not in a dream, I would not have remembered it. But the dream had blurred my consciousness enough for me to recall. So what they'll do is they'll use this frequency device on you, and you'll hear shh, kind of like if you've ever tried to astral project, or your pineal gland has been angry that you've been energy training the implant and it's trying to block you. But you'll hear shh, click, and then you'll black out. And then once they have essentially turned off your consciousness, they have knocked you out, then they will abduct you. So I would have been laying in my bed physically, and then I was already asleep, so they would have done that. And then the next thing, having a look at this last night, I was on a metal table with metal chains. They'd warped me into this. I could see them with my physical eyes, but they had essentially cloaking on, so all I could see is these giant staticky messes physically in front of me, and there was blood everywhere, so much dry blood, because I suppose if your hobbies, or your job, is to abduct and torture people, you don't really need to clean up all the blood, because you're just going to get blood everywhere again the next night. So there was probably like 8-9-year-old blood, along with more recent blood, just splattered everywhere in this rather small room, probably twice the size of the room that I'm in now. And I was the only person in there. And looking through the cloaking now with my energy, I can see it was 6 greys, but they didn't want you to know it was greys, even if you somehow recalled the memory. And then what they do is they take scalpels. It's not high tech at all. They may as well have like hooks and swords, but they take scalpels and then they cut you open. Then they take this essentially alien sci-fi gel that's full of essentially, I'd say, bits and pieces that once they merge together inside of your body, they create physical alien implants. And that is the main way that people get physical alien implants. Now, talking about alien abductions, it's very important to know that when you first start energy training, you go, alright, well, if I've been abducted, let me start looking in my subconscious, let me start looking in my energy for recorded memories. And there you will find false overlays. So when I first went to do that, I went in and this was years ago, probably 2020. I went in and there was, if you've seen the movie Communion with Christopher Walken, which is a great movie, and that is how abductions work. That movie gets aliens very correct. That is Communion with Christopher Walken, okay? And so someone will still ask in the comments, how do you spell this? But they will set up a false overlay. So when I went to look at it, the alien from Communion, the yellow-grey, its face was there smiling and had its finger up, and I went, alright, get out of the way. So I erased that. It was basically this, like, lock, this energetic lock. And then I could see this alien memory, and it was me and my family and a bunch of other people in this giant spaceship, all tied up. But it was nonsense, right? A lot of these will be nonsense. You have to be very discerning so you don't go, oh no, I can't believe they've abducted my family and myself, right? Don't put any emotional charge into this. Okay, this stuff happened years ago. Even if it's happening now, you just move on. So it's very, very important that you always energetically attack whatever you're seeing, especially if you are trying to look at any alien or other buried memories. So that was a false overlay. In my experience, physical abductions are very, very rare. Whenever you listen to stories of people talking about their physical abductions, they will usually be first-hand experiences. Very few stories where it's someone has gone to sleep and their husband or their partner or their children are just gone from their beds, right? It's usually just the first-hand account. It's not someone saying, yes, they were gone for 4 hours from the bed, then they just gradually phased back into the bed. Those stories aren't really out there. So usually it takes significantly less energy for them to do this, is they will wait till you're asleep, and then they will energetically use their frequency weapon on you, you'll and then conk out, and then they will take your consciousness, they will phase your consciousness out of your body, and then into essentially a sci-fi mannequin, which you will then gradually become more alert in, and it will be essentially a very real replica. It will look very real, it will feel very real, and it will look like your human body to you, but it's just a mannequin, really. Those are the stories where you hear where it's like, then the alien took my arm off and it hit me over the head with they're usually telling the truth, but that was not their body. It was a mannequin they were put in. They can really do whatever they want to that mannequin, and it will cause a lot of energetic damage, but it will not cause any energetic damage. So that's the main way that energetic abductions are done. Now, there are physical implants, but they're quite rare, and there are people having real evidence of physical implants. You can energetically erase them the same way you erase pineapples. It's the same basic principle. So, energetic implants, the main purposes that these serve, and these are on everyone. If you're alive on Earth and you have a soul, they will have put energetic implants on you. The main reasons are they want to lower your energy levels and keep you in more of a state of suffering and overall emitting more negative energy for them to feed off. They want to make sure that you never actually energetically train, that they make energy training, especially in the beginning, quite a lot harder. In order to make sure that you don't, enough people don't get strong enough and rise up against them and wipe them off this matrix, really. And then they also want to create mental blockages. So they want you to be interested in aliens. They certainly do. But they don't want you to be interested enough to put together, wait a minute, these aliens may not have our best interests at heart. They want you to be full steam ahead with the aliens, have mental blockages that aliens are bad, and emotional and other programs making you think they have your best interests in mind. So it's really just a major controlling let's say, agenda. A major thing energetic implants will cause is tinnitus, but it's not really tinnitus. It is frequency implants. They're emitting usually negative frequencies into your head, and these frequencies, they can pick up on radio signals and other frequency devices, but they're mainly there for the aliens to be able to lower your energy levels at will, to be able to make you feel really ill if they can see you about to do something that'll put you on a more positive trajectory. But really, the more alien implants you acquire over time, the louder the noises in your head will get. And often when you're energy training, this happened to me. I used to energy train, and my pineal gland would just go shh, and it would get so loud. And it was really the only limit on me not energy training all the time back then was because it got so loud, and I'd have to take a break. A major way they design implants is they will have implants, they will create them with the intention to conceal and veil other implants. So there'll be some surface level implants, usually like 40, and these will be very easy to see. If you just start implant erasure, you can erase them no problem. And then after you've erased those, if you look deeper in your energy field, you usually find just like one big one, and then when you clear it, there'll be a whole bunch more, and on and on and on. For quite a while, because these implants are designed to try and get you to think, alright, okay, you've erased a few, you're done. There's not that many. When in reality, there are a lot. But they don't really have, at least not much. Usually when you're strong enough to see them, you're strong enough to clear them. Their main defense is, other than a few of the really nasty ones at the start, their main defense is just to hide and veil other implants. They don't spend that much on protecting them. A major thing I remember shortly before I got strong enough to forget how to erase them is I was laying in bed, and then my room was essentially overlaid, so it was half my room, half just like room in a ship. And there were a bunch of praying mantises, and one thing from Cosmic Disclosure that he talks about a lot is the Pleiadian. Now, these are basically blue chickens, and as I got strong enough to fight them, I realised, no, they're very evil. They're not the Egyptian sun god. They're just they're a blue chicken entity race. And when you're racing them, they will make like noises as if they're chickens. They're just space chickens. There's nothing impressive about them whatsoever. That is one problem I do have with Cosmic Exposure. Those aliens, they're not good. And the guy who has the Area 51 story, he talks about as a child he'd get voices in his head, and he could essentially see imaginary friends that he then figured out were aliens, and they turned on him. That's another reason why his stuff was more so credible. One other major thing I had, I was waking up, I was getting abducted like every night for a period of 3 weeks. It was, at least I was waking up with abduction symptoms. And I had on like a cheap cotton singlet, and on there was this, I'm going to say bars from about here to there, of this alien purple ink had somehow dyed onto my singlet. I'm not even sure why. Now if I were to say, I would say that this was an energetic abduction, and they branded me with an alien curse, which I would have long since cleared just from overall alien clearing. And the energy from that had manifested onto my singlet. And then I kept the singlet for like 6 months, and then when I looked at it, the thing had like died, like faded almost completely. So it wasn't very good evidence then. As I continued training and getting stronger, I was laying awake, and I would just erase negative entities when I couldn't sleep. The main ones in my bedroom used to be bugmen, purgatory skeletons, demons, and prey mantis entities. I'd say the main way I figured out the prey mantis entities were fake is I'd be like, demon, demon, demon. Oh, let's hit with my energy the prey mantis entity. Let's see if it takes damage for positive energy. And it did. It got quite mad. Then I fully erased it and I went, alright, yeah, prey mantis aliens must be evil, because they're taking damage from positive energy, and they're putting implants in me, which I'm then having to do implant erasure on and take out, these are quite clearly evil. You'll often hear from people in the New Age, they go, oh yes, the pre-medicine entities came to my house last night and put implants in me and it gave me a big power boost. And it's like, no, it's not giving you a power boost, it's giving you a perceived power boost. But if you were to actually try and erase negative energy with this power boost, you'd find out that you've actually just been blocked up. And unless you're using pre-mantis energy, really, then you've not got a power boost. They have just caused you issues. Eventually, as you build up your energetic strength, or you just get a good shield, if you've played the personal energy shielding video I have up here, that's more than enough. Their frequency weapons aren't that strong. I think they're very complex, so if your energy has enough resistance, they're designed for really people with no energy resistance at all. Their frequency weapons don't work on you, and with, for example, ghost entities, you can fight ghost entities all day. If they're in an area where they're around you, they will not eventually be like, oh, this guy, he's destroyed 90% of us, let's leave. No, they'll just keep attacking you because they don't have self-preservation. Alien entities usually have some self-preservation in that, I remember working on a friend, I think I was in my, I've been training for about a year and a half. I looked at him, he had a green reptilian behind him, I erased reptilian, and then 40 more reptilians showed up. So I erased all of them, and then the boss reptilian showed up, who was just a green reptilian, but like more detailed, and 3 times taller, and then I erased him, and then they stopped sending reptilians to him. Aliens do not have unlimited resources. If they're just throwing guys and they go, alright, they're not coming back from this guy, they'll eventually stop sending them. Another, say, interesting story, if you've ever watched alien videos on YouTube, you will see in the comments there will be a bunch of people going, aliens are just demons. If you say, I'll shoot the energy so this isn't something forward, but if you say Jesus, the aliens will have to flee in terror. And I thought, alright, can you not spam this on every fucking alien video? This is really annoying. Oh no, I'm swearing, I'm too relaxed. Alright, I probably should have said this at the start. If you have children, playing this video around them for the energy is great, but if you're under 16, this topic can be quite scary. This should have been at the start of the video, but I forgot to write it down. Anyway, oh well. So, I remember I was laying in bed, and I woke up probably at 3 AM, and there was a grey alien. He was about there. I was laying down, so I'm laying down. He's a bit bigger than where I'm laying down on the bed. He's got like giant angry eyes. His eyes were like, his head was huge. His body was small and squat. His body was tiny, but his head was huge in comparison to his body, and his eyes were huge, and he looked so angry. And I thought, all right, let me try out the religious thing. So I looked at him, and I went, all right, this guy is really angry. I'm not going to look at him again. And then I said, Jesus, and he didn't do anything. And they said, oh, well, you didn't believe enough. No, I understand how intention and belief works. Probably better than them. So no, it doesn't work. But what I think all this religious stuff is I believe it's most likely bots that are made by a group, and they are designed to go on every alien video and just spout really religious stuff everywhere, because that will make these people be like, you're wrong. If they feel they need to argue their views against others rather than, people just agreeing with them and like having some kind of analysis and thought, they're much more likely to actually question their own belief in aliens. And then later on I was curious where that great alien was, and I found him and erased him 9 months later. But yeah, saying religious names in front of them does not do anything. That brings me to, alright, now this bit's for real. Don't listen to this bit around your children unless they're over 16, because this part is dark. So, a major agenda the aliens have, in particular the Pleiadians and Reptilian aliens have, is human alien hybridization. What they will do is they will abduct a usually pregnant woman, and they will inject them with praying mantis DNA. Praying mantis is by far the most common. They will inject them with praying mantis DNA, and their goal, and they will then, her kids will be born. They'll abduct them over their lifetimes, inject them with DNA, then their kids, etc., etc. And like 6 generations later, their goal is to have a human praying mantis physical hybrid. Now the issue is this doesn't work, and they've been doing this for a very long time, and all it will do is that bloodline will just get sicker and sicker and sicker, and they might have some praying mantis traits, but they're not physically going to be able to survive on Earth for long. They just get worse because the human DNA is not designed to be crossed with alien praying mantis DNA. It simply doesn't work, and they've done it with greys as well and reptilians, but praying mantis is by far the most common. But these aliens, they have advanced technology, yes, but they're really stupid. It's the DNA hybridizing. It's never going to work. It's essentially like if you've ever had a children's toy and it's got a cube and there are holes in it, and there'll be like the circle hole and the rectangle and the triangle, right? You'll have the blocks next to you that they fit in the holes, and eventually you figure out, oh, I can fit everything in the square hole, and so you'll do that, and it's much easier than flipping it around and putting it all in the different holes. Humans are not the square hole. Humans are the triangle hole. So if you've got to take the circle in the triangle hole, it doesn't work. And if you keep pushing it in, it's just going to break with your like adult man strength. It's just going to break the toy. But they've been doing this agenda for the first reset and before the second reset. They've been doing this for millennia, tens of millennia. Humans are not compatible with alien DNA. That being said, one thing they can do is energetic hybridization, and this is very common. So while they've put physical DNA in you, and there are a few different things which can determine whether they target your bloodline initially, whether your family members signed any deals with demons or aliens, soul contracts, things like that for their entire bloodline, which they can do, curses. There are plenty of ways that someone's family can be opted in for this. And then if you get strong enough and shield yourself, well, you opt out. You forcefully opt out. But with energetic hybridization, they will usually, I'm trying to think how to word this without making it sound terrible. So they will target your overall energy field, they'll target your soul, and in time, negative entities can hybridize your soul's energy from being human into their race, usually praying mantis, and they will target your energy body. And your energy body, which usually looks like a crystal human body, it will instead look like a praying mantis. And the more hybridized and more energy builds up, the more detailed the hybridization becomes. And then people will just end up usually having a lot of physical health problems from their energy body being hybridized, and they'll, especially if they've got like dragon hybridization or reptilian hybridization, and they've got a tail, they'll usually have really bad lower back pain, and usually just pain and aches all over. Their body will feel like it's a geriatric, because energetically it's completely incompatible with their physical body. I do not know of any alien human hybrids that are walking around. It's simply not compatible. They'd be very ill and they'd have to avoid sunlight. It's not really feasible. Even the humanish ones, you could say the Anunnaki were human-ish. They're not human. They've got giant beetle heads and a giant beetle body. It walks on 2 beetle legs. It's not very human, but there have been Anunnaki human hybrids. I'd say the Anunnaki are a lot smarter than the praying mantises, because they've actually got a few working ones in history, but they're usually very sick and very frail anyway. So in regards to their overall hybridization agenda, they will target the reproductive organs in anyone who they're targeting. You often hear from abduction stories of women, especially pregnant women, where they say they are harvesting their eggs. What they're doing with the eggs, I'm not exactly sure. You can't really interrogate these guys. But even if they were to take human eggs out of someone and try and do like IVF and other very heinous experiments, it would be incompatible. It would just simply not work with their current technology and their current agenda. Now, that being said, they would usually want bloodlines they're targeting, to get with other bloodlines, especially at this late stage in the game. So if your bloodline is being targeted by praying mantis entities, then they will often put on you what I call a charm bite. It will look like a essentially bite, but it's full of energetic realms, usually on your neck, but it can often be on your genitals or on another part of your body. And they will have these on other people that are being targeted by alien entities. And then there will be this, I'd say, unnatural attraction caused by two people with charm bites linking, or they may even pick someone and put a charm bite on them, and then you are after the fact. But that is very much part of their agenda. So if you're being targeted by aliens, it's very important that you pay attention to your own emotions and, I'd say, question whether what you're feeling and thinking are true. Take a step back from your own thoughts, your own emotions, and try and attack and view the source of them. No, even if they've taken eggs from you, the eggs, they try and use them and they wouldn't work. They don't usually keep them for black magic purposes or anything like that. And it'd be the same for men. If they've taken any of their reproductive fluid, then yeah, they try and use it, but it wouldn't work. And they'll often put in false overlays of both for women and men of being, let's say, used horribly. But in my experience, whenever I've checked these have been false overlays. They don't seem to actually use you, which is fortunate. The false overlay will still have bloody disgust and emotional energy tied around it, but they won't, at least in my experience, have actually used you. So I will now talk about the different alien groups, the different ones that I have come across. So you've got the very obviously evil aliens. These are the guys that go, yes, we are the bad guys. We will control you. You're doomed, right? You've got the green reptilians. These are the grunt reptilians, very common. You've got the blue reptilians. These are the more psychic-y reptilians. They usually target children who have essentially energetic potential, or people who do tarot card readings. Then there are the black reptilians. These are they're a lot stronger than green reptilians, and usually a bit stronger than blue reptilians. They usually target people if they're watching a lot of horror movies, or if they are in a depressed state. They'll be much more attracted to that energy, and they'll attack them for that reason. Then you have the praying mantises. They're very common. They look literally. You take a praying mantis, right? Then pull off all their legs. Then give them two humanoid-ish legs with like how many toes? Three to four toes, depending on the praying mantis. But they have praying mantis arms and a praying mantis head. Then you have the, I guess what I call the elite praying mantises. They look like that as well, except their body is more dark green and dark red, and they have this mesh over their eyes. And then there are other variations in the praying mantises as well. Black praying mantises, which are usually in charge of the reincarnation trap, and white praying mantises as well. They usually work together. Then you've got the greys. You've got the generic greys, giant head, tiny body, very angry eyes. You've got the yellow greys. They're more energy, I'd say. They set up more negative energy. They actually use energy, whereas the regular greys do not. Then you've got the black greys. These are the worst greys. They're greys, but with essentially giant black splotches and flecks all over their body. These are the most problematic greys, and they're by far the strongest greys. Then you have the red reptilians, which are essentially a hybridization between demonic energy and green reptilians usually. Then you have, so with Earth, I'm not sure exactly how the planets are all really there, right? There is teleportation technology as far as I'm aware, so the planets could be as far away as they say, but on a lot of the planets there's a lot denser negative energy. So on Mars you've got the Mars demons. They're very prevalent, and but they don't do that much abducting. Then you have the false white light aliens. Now these are the aliens who will say, we're here for humanity, we're here to help you. Ascension's just around the corner in 2018. It's been 5 years. And for people who've been following this since 2010, well, it's supposed to happen in 2012, and people who've been following it in the 70s, it's probably going to happen in 78, etc., etc. They just, it doesn't happen. But you've got the false white light groups. You've got the Orion entities. These are essentially space elves. They look like elves, but they've got white hair, rather anorexic. They use a lot of essentially typical black magic, curses, seals, things like that. You've got the Pleiadians. They're white anorexic humanoids. Again, anorexic, pale white hair usually. They're very common. You've got the Arcturians. They're these blue anorexic, usually women. I've never seen an Arcturian man, but blue anorexic women. Very evil. You've got the Andromedans. They're basically this big. They're blue dwarves. They've got a dwarf head, and then 8 to 20 arms. Very evil. Oh, and 2 legs. They're naked. The other aliens, they wear clothes. Andromedans, they don't wear clothes. They're just naked. You've got the Syrians. Can't remember much about them. They're very weak. You've got the entities that say they're in Earth. I don't know what they really are. But I think just because they say they're in Earth makes me doubt them. But they're similar to the Pleiadians, except even more pale. But their hair, they actually got hair right. The Pleiadians have this matted, almost like moth-eaten hair. The inner Earth beings will have hair, usually white or brown, that looks like hair, but it's a very good replica. However they create that. Then you have the Nordics. These are what people think about when they often think about positive aliens. They are tanned or white with blonde hair. These are not real. These are reptilians in cloaking. Unfortunately, they're not real. They're reptilians. Then you have the blue aliens. They're just the sun god Ra. And by that I mean they're just a blue chicken. They're also evil. Just another thing. So with alien entities, for example, the Egyptian gods, those are what you see is what you get. With the Greek gods, what you see is not what you get. What you see is Zeus, Hera, Achilles, etc. No, not Achilles. He's not one of them. Zeus, Hera, Poseidon. There we go. There's a third one. And you think, oh yes, they're human. They look like a Greek god. They're white, masculine. No, that's not what they look like. They actually are just reptilians as well. So with the gods, the Mesopotamian gods, half of them are reptilians, half are gods. But if the god is some kind of weird animal monstrosity or animal humanoidish thing, that is usually an entity race. If it is human, that is usually just a reptilian pretending to be human. Yeah, pretending to be a human god. So, how do I know that these aliens are evil? Well, I'm glad you asked. The main way is when I'm working on people and their energy body and their souls, my own soul energy will be essentially pieces of it will be stolen in different entity races, and every single one of these aliens are named at least hundreds of different people. They've stolen their soul energy from. It's very, very common. Also, if they were not evil, they would not have a whole bunch of their energy in people, and they would not be attempting to hybridize them. And I've seen every single one of them. I've seen hybridization for. They also would not be trying to possess people. People that channel, when people channel, let's say the Pleiadians, they open themselves up and the Pleiadians just go straight down their throat and they go in. And then when they stop channeling, those Pleiadians don't leave. They stay in their energy. And then when they do it again, more Pleiadians come in. And over time, the Pleiadians' goal for these people is to essentially fully possess them and completely take them over and just be a walking, essentially negative Pleiadian vessel. Another major way, and I've talked about this before, but I shall talk about it again, and that is light language. Now, light language is essentially people, it's basically a very light form of trance where people will speak this alien language. The first time I looked at light language, I played some of the videos and it does heal. There is healing energy in it. It does work somewhat, but the question is, what else is in here, right? There may be healing energy, but if you added anything extra in here, right, is there some extra rat poison sprinkled in with it? So I played and I thought, this is very interesting, but something feels off. The second time I played it, I'm going to say a year and probably nearly 2 years later, I could energetically view the aliens they were talking about, and I could view this almost idyllic scenery, like Lyran, that's another one. False white light entity, Lyran. They're basically white winged lions. I remember this because I was looking at them and I looked at Lyran and there were all these lions like playing around and healing people, and it looked really good. Same with all the other ones. It looked really nice. The Orion place had this giant pyramid in the background. It was this like high-tech society, wherever I was viewing, where they were. It was all really cool, but something felt very off. So the third time I looked at it, probably 7 months later, I went to view the Lyrans, and I went, this looks really nice, this is the same scene. And then I energetically attacked what I was seeing, and the veil pierced, and I could see Lyrans eating half dead people, just eating their corpses, their blood all over them. They were clearly evil, right? And I went, no, the Lyrans are evil, I liked them. And then I went to the Orions and could see that was a veil, and their place is like half decayed, and they are just putting their hands on people that show up or that they're connecting to, and just siphoning their energy. The Orions are evil, Arcturians are evil, Andromedans are very, very evil. Because I went to their place, which was like all flowery and positive, and the flowers were like decayed, and they were going in people's heads. I could see this, and really building implants and like their own essentially beehive in them. So I just went through all the different races and went, they're all evil. There's not a single good one. Come on, guys. How disappointing. So that is how I came to learn that all the false white light ones, without shadow of a doubt, were evil. Now, that brings me to more recent alien times, because since I left Australia, I forgot to mention this. So as an area becomes more dense, and another major thing I forgot to mention, I must have skimmed over to my notes. Alright, when an area becomes more energetically dense, more aliens will show up. That's why aliens are becoming much, much more common on Earth, as the density is becoming way worse. Especially now with the archdemons, but even before then, a lot more alien presence than there were. So the aliens will show up and they'll phase in, and then on a physical level, you'll just see. I remember one showed up. It was this giant, bright white light in the sky, right over a city. Where I used to live, I'd say the city was over at Maroochydore. Terrible energy. It's in the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia, and this giant light was over there. I used to think, what do the people over there think? Because I can see this here, and it's not close to me, and it's really bright. And I remember saying, even to my parents, "Can you see that?" And they said, "Yeah, I can see that. It's a sports stadium, and it's very bright." And I said, "No, it's not a sports stadium. They didn't build a sports stadium in the sky that floats. Come on." They weren't very bright. And then a second one showed up a bit further away, about 3 weeks later. But it would be, this major one showed up about once a week to start with, then twice a week, then 3 times a week. Then it was just becoming prevalent, and it was rare that it wasn't there. Then the second one was showing up. So I just, using my primordial vision, moved through the giant white light and had a look energetically. And it was just a giant spaceship. Another thing that is very common, there would often be a spaceship that would show up at about 3 to 4 a.m. Just above the coast from where I could see. And all the star beings would fly across and fly into the ship and then it would gradually phase out as well. So I believe the star beings rarely phase themselves in. They usually phase in essentially a mothership. The only other thing of note with star beings is, I'm calling them star beings, they're not, these are just grey UFO ships. Oh yes, the way that they split. So grey alien entities are actually, there's no soul, but they are essentially a worm, about, or more like a slug, about that big, and they've got some black spiky bits on them. That is a grey alien. Every other bit of it is flesh that has been moulded to function for this slug. This is both physically and energetically how they exist. And if you build up enough energetic strength, you could just ignore the physical bit and just hit the slug, and then all the energy will just like collapse because there's no consciousness, well, base consciousness, slug consciousness, holding it up. So when a starship splits, the grey alien, so there may be like 10 or 12 slugs in one, then it will split to 2 sixes and then split more that way. And that's how they split, because they have different slugs in the same bodies. But as the energetic density gets worse, it becomes much easier for aliens to show up. And on a physical level, you won't see this, you'll feel it in your body a bit. But energetically, they're basically just harvesting all of the all the negative emotional energy and all the other, really, mainly emotional energy, but their soul energy as well from others, and pulling it into their ships pretty much every night. That's their agenda. This was shortly after I'd started entry training. I'm going to say, not shortly, 9 months. I was laying in bed and I looked out of my window and I could see a large, there were ships everywhere that night. There must have been something dark going on. And yeah, some nights I'd look out and there'd just be stars everywhere, and I thought, oh, something dark's definitely going on. But there was one ship and it was a gold floating pyramid. It was very impressive. And I remember laying in bed, and praying mantis entities and a few other ones that were really well cloaked, so I couldn't tell what they were just standing around me, and I thought, this is interesting. This was the first time this had happened. And I was laying in bed, and they essentially took partial possession of my body and started using my hand to like tap all over my body and to check everything. Then they etherically squirted something in my mouth. I just went, oh, I don't know how to stop this. And also, this may be good. I wasn't sure back then. So I just let it happen. And they did that, and it was interesting while they were using my body to give me some kind of overall examination. I believe at this point they got too strong for them to abduct me. I didn't know that at the time, and that's why they had to do that there. And the thing is, it was interesting for about 15 minutes, and it went for an hour and like 10. It was boring after a while. And then I thought, okay, before I go to bed, let me bring up my phone and message a friend a whole bunch of dot points about this. So I messaged him this, and then when I woke up the next day, well, the dot points were still there, and I went, okay, that really did happen. Because they'll often try and get in your head, that wasn't real. But no, it was very clearly real. I'd messaged him right after it happened. That was I'd say, very full-on. That's the most full-on conscious alien experience I had, that, I still have conscious memory of. And then it happened a second time, I think, 2 months later than that. That one, at that point I thought, no, you guys are off. I'll put up with this. I was basically like, do whatever you want. I don't know how to stop you, but please don't, probe me. I'm not going to allow that. Anything but probing. And they do probe. Why do they probe? They didn't probe me, not them. But why do they probe people? It's just because it's traumatic. They're not taking samples or anything. They just abduct people, and, right? Because it's very traumatic to have a giant, cold, metal, sometimes sharp probe put somewhere that you don't want it to. But probing is quite real, especially with physical and energetic abductions. And you'll certainly feel it the next day. Anyway, it did happen a second time, and that time I think they were getting annoyed that they hadn't been able to abduct me for like probably 5 months. So they had me basically remote control my body, but I could take conscious control back of my body at will. The first time, my body, I was laying there, and it was almost like I was in some kind of like super glue. Like if I moved my hand, it would go like resistance, and it'd bounce back. The second time, I could do whatever I wanted. Their resistance, their frequency device they were using it wasn't much to me at that point. So I could move around and there'd be this like little bit of tension, but nothing. And then if I took conscious control back of my body, which the first time I could do, but it was more difficult, the second time it was really easy. And then after they were done, took about 40 minutes the second time, they had me get up, and I could tell just consciously, they want me to walk outside. I went, I'm not walking outside. You dicks are going to kidnap me, right? You're going to abduct me and do terrible things. So I did not walk outside. I went back to bed. And that was the last time I had that kind of experience. But yeah, moving out of Australia has helped a lot with alien activity, and I'm way stronger, so it's, yeah, no one is much of an issue. Now, sometimes with aliens, you'll be overlaid in an area where they will have physical bodies. So last year, I was sleeping, and I was having a dream, and in the dream, someone said something rude to me, and a friend I was with said, I don't like that, and he ran over and he punched him right in the face, and then just started kicking him, and I said, what are you doing? You can't do that. You can't just start kicking people. We're going to get in trouble. Well, you're going to get in trouble, and I'll get in trouble for assisting you. So anyway, I woke up and I was physically in bed, but I was energetically overlaid in a spaceship, and there were these aliens. They were blue. They had like giant childlike eyes, like a mix between like half child, or when I say child, I mean like infant and like fish-like, and they had these giant eyes and this giant mouth. And they talked like bloop, 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 bloop. It was very odd. And in my head, I was getting, I need to get back in the dream. I need to make sure my friend doesn't get in trouble. And I went, yeah, wait a minute, hang on. What's going on here? And one of these things was right in front of me, right in front of my face, and it had its hand jammed through my ear, and in it was manifesting out of its hand implants into me. And I was getting really loud frequency noises in my head. And I went, hang on, I'm not going back to sleep. You have your hand in my ear. So I energetically used my energy to grab him, and I started erasing him. And this thing went like this really high-pitched fish childlike scream. Amphibians also a very common negative entity race. But it's screaming. I'm like, shut up, die quietly. You're really loud. But it was screaming at the top of its lungs, and then another one comes over and goes to see what's going on, and I started erasing it. There were about 10 in total in the room, and it starts screaming, and then I go, alright, let me just start erasing all of you at the same time. So I started erasing all of them, and then I'm racing through this one, and he starts bleeding, like green blood starts coming out of his blue weird body. And I went, oh, wait, why is there blood? These things are normally made out of negative energy. But he's bleeding, and then as I'm erasing him, my energy erased enough of his stomach that his guts started coming out and getting all over the floor. I'm like, oh, this is gross. Stop getting your guts everywhere. Just die already. So I went ahead and erased all of them, and I might have left over some guts, but fully erased all of them. And then once I had erased them, erased the implants in my ear, and then I energetically attacked the energetic negative field that was holding me halfway manifested there. This was, fully energetic. I was not there physically. They were more so almost physically in my presence. I erased that connection, and then their overlay disappeared, and I was back in my bed, and then I went back to sleep. But that's the most recent full-on alien experience I've had. We're very weird aliens. Now, when I'm creating implants, I find a lot of implants that are basically shapes. It'll be like an oval with divots on it, and then usually like a needle. These are very common, and inside there'll often be a whole bunch of alien energetic portals which they can connect to and fill with alien entities and energy. They're very common. Now, another thing that I see a lot in people is our energy system or energy grids throughout our body will often be going through a body, and then there'll just be a giant energetic wormhole that straight to an alien energy grid, and they're powering their alien energy grids via people's soul energy. And then that brings me to last night. So I went, alright, I'm going to make this alien video. I scheduled it the night before last, but then it didn't go public for some reason, so I scheduled it that morning. Last night I was sleeping, and now when I dream, I'm usually pretty well conscious. I retain a lot of my mental awareness when I'm dreaming. But I was having a dream, and in the dream, it was a regular negative entity dream. There were entities playing characters, but one of the characters in the dream got possessed and was saying very rude things, and I thought, all right, something's off with you. Even the other characters in the dream were going, what is this? I could tell from their mannerisms, not that they said it, but that they were confused why someone in their entity realm was possessing someone else. And if I'm having a negative dream, and I am aware of it, which I often am, if they start doing questionable things like possessing characters, I'll start trying to erase the character, and I started doing that. It wasn't working very well, and then I went, all right, well, I'm going to have to wake myself up, because this is clearly a terrible dream, and I started energetically attacking the reality I was in, and after doing that for 2 minutes, I ended up, like, vomiting, partially, especially in my mouth. There's like white, pinky foam and spitting out and going, all right, this is great. I'm throwing up alien bits now. And then after another minute, I woke myself up. And then I went back to sleep. But I found out, thanks to that some alien race were clearly mad that I was going to make an alien healing video, or an alien erasure video. So, because I found them, I get to name them. These shall be the albino hive foam bugs. That's what we're calling them, because it's essentially some kind of hive consciousness alien race. They look like albino, white, foamy, like, I'd say like a bug with 20 legs and like mandibles. Anyway, this video is now erasing those entities as well, because they messed with me last night. So they're on the list now too. They're welcome. Anyway, that is everything I had to talk about in regards to aliens. I also have a playlist on this channel called Relatively Accurate Documentaries. There is one there about aliens. It is worth a watch, as well as it sums up mainstream alien investigation, and they came to a very similar conclusion that I have. So if anyone has any questions now, because I've not read any questions, feel free to ask. We'll do some questions. I'm just scrolling up to see if there are any questions. I don't know who that is. So, and I don't give opinions on people. Will this video erase energetic? This video, it depends on the intention. It's not set to erase physical implants, but you can set the intention for that, yes. No, aliens did not create people whatsoever. Don't write things in all caps. No, I'm not answering. Can aliens target vision? Yes, one of the main things energetic implants target are the eyes and the ears. How long do I energy drain each day? Pretty much all the time. Are aliens able to target us and isolate us for energy harvesting? I would say, well, for you and I, for regular people, yes, definitely. For people with energetic shielding, no, unless they're really going after you, or they have implants in you, or they've got ships nearby that are like trying to siphon your energy. They can do it that way, yes. Can aliens disguise themselves as characters? The answer is in your mind, and etherically, yes, they can definitely disguise and cloak themselves. Physically, there are no physical aliens, as far as I'm aware, walking around on Earth as people pretend to be people. There are people that were humans and are still mostly, or still somewhat human, that are completely possessed and are like, oh yes, I too drink water and eat food. Those people are possessed, but they are not aliens pretending to be people. They are aliens pretending to be people, but they're not physically aliens pretending to be people. They are energetically aliens that have hijacked a body. Why are the spaceships seen on TV mostly round? Because round spaceships are the most common design. the most important things to clear a race before exiting the Matrix? It's a loaded question. Mainly just get your soul in a good state. That's by far the most important. Then your energy body, and then cord cutting, and then soul contracts. Are aliens harder to race than ghosts? No. It depends on the overall accumulated amount of negative energy. Alright, I'm going to put rules up somewhere. If you ask your question in all capital letters, I'm not answering your questions. Come on. How am I able to maintain awareness during sleep? It's just something that happened on its own as I got energetically stronger and built up more resistance. How can we know if someone has delayed energy sensitivity? Well, if it's you just learn by how you feel energy, and if it's someone else, you'd have to ask them or view their energy. But asking would be the easiest way. What is the best way to deal with narcissistic people if you have to? Energetically make a conscious separation between you and them. Know that their energy is not yours, and consciously state that you don't wish to even feel their energy, and make no issue to feel it. Alright, now I'm just getting repeats of questions. I shall end this here. I'd say a minute 12 mark. In another video I may talk about aliens as well. But if I discover any other alien races, I will just add the energy for clearing them into this video. If you have any questions and you're watching this at a future point in time, feel free to put the questions in the comments. What I'm going to do now with YouTube videos is YouTube, for whatever reason, has, like, right now I'm recording this in 1080p, and it should look mostly 1080p, maybe 720. But for some reason when it goes up, they're like putting artifacts in video and making it look a bit blocky. So I'm recording this with my camera and my webcam as well, and the audio separately. So I will upload this to videos. If you're watching this in videos on YouTube, if you go to my channel and you click on live, then there will be all the other healing videos I made for the time being. So I think that's what I'm going to try going forward. Alright everyone, have a good day.